There. All right, we are underway. So, welcome to the meeting, and let's scroll to the next slide. Here are some Zoom tips for those of you who are not accustomed to this. During the presentation, we're going to ask that you please keep your mic off, and you can keep your camera on if you want to. That's your decision. During the presentation, it's a very short presentation tonight, and the idea here is that we're just giving you guys an update because it's been a while since we were in touch and we're a little bit behind schedule. So we wanted to get back in touch with you and show you some updates, ask you some questions. So if you have any questions during our short presentation, put them in the chat. If they are short technical questions, we'll respond to them during the presentation. Otherwise, we're going to save them for the question session at the end. So if we could go on to the next slide. There we go. Here's our agenda for tonight. Project team and schedule goals. We're going to give you a reminder about what we had previously shown and then show you a couple of design updates that are interesting developments that we wanted to share. Then we're going to have a Q&A session, listening and discussion, and then next steps. So if we can go into the next slide. I am B. Chatfield. I am the project manager for Boston Parks and Recreation. There's my email address, abigail.chatfield@boston.gov, or I answer my phone and I will even call you back if you leave a number in your message, 617-504-7709. I'm here with our fantastic design team from Weston and Sampson. They do a ton of work with us and they're really great. So we're super happy that they're on this project. We can go to the next slide. So here is our updated project schedule. Previously, I think we were talking about going out to bid right, now basically, or it was in the fall potentially. So we got into a number of conversations that resulted in some design developments, and so that's pushed us back a little bit. Here we are in January with our community meeting for our briefing. In April, we are going to go into permitting, and our goal is to go out to bid by the end of June. September would start construction, and we would anticipate the park opening in the fall of 2025. Part of this timing, going out to bid in June, is because at that point, we are going to have additional funding for our construction from OBM, Office of Budget Management. And so we have to time our bid date with that funding. So if we could go on to the next slide. So I'm going to pass this off to the design team, and they're going to walk you through some of our recent updates. Thanks. Matt Sewell, here you go.
Yep. Matt Sewell, I'm a project manager for this project, presented on this one before. Thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate all the turnout. So we'll start with the plan that we showed last time, the improvements to the baseball and softball fields, the slight upgrades to this resurfacing of the basketball courts and the tennis courts, or excuse me, not the basketball courts, the tennis courts, the addition of the street hockey rink, the playground updates, and then we had developed a entry plaza off of LaGrange, and we had a entry plaza off of Bellevue that had some terracing and shelters with picnic tables, and then that led to the splash pad there, and that corner's changed a little bit, and we'll show you that. And there were some minor updates to the entry plaza, not as much as the LaGrange corner, and we'll show you that one as well. So the Bellevue corner, it's now, we're preserving more of the existing trees in that corner. It's now meant to be a small grove, so to provide some much needed shade for that corner. And then the picnic areas and were slid down so that they're with the splash pad. So the splash pad and so it'll be more of a gathering space around the splash pad. And then the line work you're seeing there is just an accessible route down to the splash pad from from the path, the loop path that goes around the park. The other thing we did at the entry plaza off of LaGrange was to reduce some of the paving. Minor change was flipping the picnic tables to the outside of the path so that they're overlooking the fields before they were on the inside of the path and under the sort of within the grove. And that space is meant to be sort of a flex event space for farmers markets or the Corib road race gathering, things like that. And then the other big changes are the call outs in red, which are new accessible entries. And we can talk about, we'll dig into that a little bit more in the as we go on in the presentation. There's accessible paths that go down to the dugouts for all the fields, an accessible ramp on either side of the existing building that bring you down to the loop path, and then a new accessible ramp at the corner of at Bellevue. So coming down from the Bellevue entry plaza down, and we'll take a closer look at that one in a little bit.
Just want to jump in for 1 second here too. The red lines on the overall plan are where sections are getting cut, which means like we're showing you, you know, basically like as though you were on the ground in those two areas where you've got those two dark red lines.
Yeah, thank you, B. Yeah, so next we'll take a look at those two section cuts and just see what that looks like sort of in elevation view. So starting with the entry plaza, there's some steps that come down to a mid-level flat surface, and then steps down to a permeable paving area with trees and paving, and then that leads out to a lawn space, and it's all sort of tied together with this canopy of trees that we would be planting through there. And again, that's meant to function as an event space where folks can stand up, you know, sort of either have a band or address folks from this mid-level platform or landing, so large landing, we'll call it. And then there's some paving that could accommodate, you know, heavier foot traffic, so the lawn wouldn't get beat up, and then the rest of the lawn would be spillover space for a larger event. And then we'll take a look at the Bellevue corner. So this section goes through the corner. What's just off the page there is the steps coming down. So you're coming down just to sort of a small junction with some seat walls with the light gray paving crescent. There is pavers. So there's a crescent of pavers that would allow trucks to make that turn, but we're keeping the path smaller so it doesn't feel like a wide expanse of asphalt. Then you're looking down through the grove here where we're maintaining more of the trees that exist there now. And then a series of sloped paths that bring you down to the splash pad and picnic areas.
So I'm just going to give a little
Yeah.
bit of background here. Sorry, thanks for showing us all of those beautiful views, Matt. Here is the detailed plan of the ramp at the Bellevue entrance. And this was something that was brought up during our earlier design process. And we weren't really sure how to take it, right? It seemed like a big intervention. It seemed like something that was potentially fairly expensive and fairly complicated. But there were a number of constituents who advocated for this. And I said, well, you know, we'll look at that. And so we met with the Disabilities Commission, as all of our projects are doing these days, just to make sure that we are understanding and sort of maximizing our park's abilities to be as open as possible to everybody, you know, as many people as we can welcome, right? And they said, you know, we really want you to look at installing a ramp here. And so we did, right? And we took a pretty deep dive and did an assessment of the woodland area, Basically, the points that we looked at, it was sort of like the wildlife value in the woodland area and how much is the ramp going to impact that. Concerns regarding urban heat. We took a look at the neighborhood for urban heat and if this is going to create something negative for that. The maintainability of the ramp. Are we going to be able to take care of something like this, a steep slope going up to the street, down to the park? The usefulness, who is going to be benefiting from this, and then the cost, right? So we did an assessment of all of these sort of elements, and essentially the high overview here is that while the woodland area is lovely and lots of people appreciate it and really do benefit from it, as far as the wildlife value is, it has basically, it's all sort of what's called edge condition, which is pretty negative in terms of forest health. If you have basically like a square forest plot, that is going to be healthier because there's more interior to a square or a circle even than a long rectangular shape, which is what we have here. So, essentially the negative effects of a forest edge are, exposure to, weeds and invasive plants. It increases parasitism, greater competition. It exposes species to increased risk of predation, and more invasive plants. So, I guess what we wanted to say is we understand that this forest area is supportive of wildlife, and this ramp is going to be it's about 20% of the forest area. So it's not insignificant, and we didn't want to appear like we're just installing this willy-nilly. We've really considered the positives and the negatives, and the positives are numerous. We're going to have accessibility for people with wheelchairs as well as strollers and bikes. This north entrance along Bellevue serves, it is about, sorry, I have my little cheat sheet here with my numbers. 2,400 people who live around the park would use this entrance. The accessible entrance, the next accessible entrance, basically, if somebody dropped you off in a car and you were mobility impaired and they dropped you off at the current Bellevue entrance, you would have to basically go all the way down Center Street to LaGrange in order to be able to safely enter this park. So, we said that is not a good situation, and we don't want to encourage that. We have the ability to change that situation with this park renovation. And so there are a number of trees that will be coming out as a result of this. They're relatively small, 6-inch caliber. So that means they're pretty young. And the designers have made a really great effort to try and step this in a way to allow for mature, larger trees to be maintained. I was going to say, as far as urban heat goes, larger forest swaths are beneficial to mitigating and reducing urban heat. However, West Roxbury is one of the lucky neighborhoods where there is a lot of tree canopy. And in the heat study that the city of Boston released in 2022, this is not one of the neighborhoods of concern. So while removing some of these trees is going to reduce a bit of that shade, we are going to be putting back some trees as well with this project. And we think that the benefits of this ramp are going to outweigh the costs, essentially. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to the design team. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, B. The plan we're looking at right now shows proposed new trees along with over the survey showing existing trees. And then we've highlighted trees that are proposed for removal. We did have an arborist company go into the woodland and assess the significant trees that were in the woodland. And surprisingly, along that edge with the stairs, even though there's a lot of vegetation there, there's actually not a high number of significant trees until you get further into the further along the slope. So there's 3 trees highlighted in red, grouped together, that would need to be removed. Excuse me. Again, 6-inch trees, as B mentioned, and then another 6-inch tree further down that would need to be removed. The reason for the sort of uneven length of the ramps is that we are avoiding, there's a existing 38-inch oak that's in very good health here. So we shortened this first run of ramp to stay well clear of that tree. And then the middle run runs long in order to make up the difference. We are descending about 26 feet from Bellevue down to the into the park. So it is a significant, length of ramp needed to get down there. And we'll show you a couple images. I also should just point out the 3 trees along the edge here, one of which is in poor condition. These 3 trees, the stairs being rebuilt as part of this because the stairs are not in great condition. So the stairs would be rebuilt, and so those 3 trees likely will not survive that process. So we're assuming that they would come out. So we'll take a look at a couple of views to sort of help you understand the scale of this. We're showing the sort of the existing 38-inch oak here, if you can see my cursor, and then you can kind of get a sense of the height of the walls that's needed to come down. And so we're also sort of in discussion with B about what do those walls look like, other than bare concrete. So here's a view down from the bottom looking up. We have to have guardrails along that edge, so that's what the sort of metal mesh panels are, to provide fall protection along the top of the wall. And then the ramp starts at the top of the stairs and ends at the bottom of the stairs, so that's one of the requirements of the disability access, is that it's a parallel access route where you're starting at the same point and you end at the same point, so that you're not being sent somewhere else, in the park. That's, if the ramps were to try and cut across the slope, to the other, to land behind the tennis courts, that doesn't meet the sort of spirit of the letter of the law in terms of, but also the spirit of the law, which is, equal access. So starting at the same point, ending at the same point. And then just noting that because we're rebuilding the stairs, we're able to push and pull the landings so that each switchback of the ramp aligns with the landing of the stairs. So you're not stuck on the ramp as you descend the ramp. You have ability to get on and off the ramp. You don't feel like you're sort of alone on this long journey, till you get to the end. And one last thing about that is that we're showing some magnolias trees in the corners here, just as a placeholder. We haven't selected the species yet for that, but the idea is that where the ramp sort of is, where that soil space is at its widest in these corners, that we'll be able to at least put a few trees back. And then this is an overall plan showing the proposed removals. And this includes the 4 trees that would be taken out in the woodland. All of these removals have to be approved by the city arborist, so that we're not removing things willy-nilly that he feels are worth keeping. So we're proposing 23 removals, including the 4 trees in the woodland, and then the project as a whole plants 121 trees. So we're really trying to increase canopy, and put back more than we're taking down. So that brings us back to the overall schedule. And then B, should we move on to the plan?
Yes. So if we're gonna click back, so we have our updated concept proposal. And this is the part of the meeting that I don't like. It's essentially sort of a primer on budget, right? And how these things work. And when we started this project, we had a design budget and sort of preliminary funding with the idea that we would go to the community, we would talk to you guys, we would figure out what the desired elements were. Maybe it was just some new lighting and we're done. um, Obviously that was not the case, and there were quite a few requests for different additions and alterations. And what we've seen within the last couple of years with all of our projects is ridiculously high bid prices coming in. And a project that 5 years ago was like $1 million these days is coming in at like 2 or like 2.5. Some of this is like a logical, increase in materials costs, and some of it is just like things went crazy during COVID and they haven't quite normalized yet. Um, so essentially, we have two hurdles that this project needs to go through because we had only preliminary funding at the beginning of this project. We're going now to the Office of Budget Management and requesting funding for this project, as you see, right? However, it doesn't make sense to go out to bid without something it's called ad alternates, basically. And so you come up with your base plan, and then you say to the contractor, I want you to give me your estimate for what you think the base plan is going to cost, and then tell me how much more it would cost if we do X, if we do Y, and if we do Z. And if you're lucky, if the Parks Department's lucky, we will be able to do X, Y, and Z plus the base plan. So it's our task as project managers these days with all of our projects to figure out what those items are that we sort of tack on top. And therefore, there's a possibility that they will not be included, right? If bids are high, the Parks Department wants to proceed with renovations at Billings. We don't think that going out to bid with all of the items on this plan makes sense because it may be too much. And then we're faced with the frustrating time-intensive process of having to go back out to bid after redesigning, so that's another like 4 months or something. So we had been talking internally about the possibility of what are these items? What could we part with? And the one element in this plan that is new to the park and is not an existing item that requires renovation. Well, I guess there are a couple of them, but one of them is the street hockey rink. And so we were talking about that, and we wanted to check in with you guys tonight and see, is that okay? If we went into construction and the street hockey rink is not part of the plan, we didn't want people to be surprised if that turns out to be the case. The other element that we were looking at for another ad alternate, one of the XYZ, tacking on the top items, potentially could be the LaGrange entry plaza. And, instead of doing the nice event space, that would be a great home for a lot of sort of civic activity and gathering and socializing. We could instead just keep that as sort of a basic path. There are a number of improvements here that we do feel pretty strongly about. We know that the lights, the field lights, are in pretty terrible condition, and those are a pretty big ticket item, but we want to keep those in the project. And we also feel like the accessibility improvements and cooling improvements. So the splash pad is something where we know summer camps use this site, everyone in the community uses this site. People get hot and summers are just going to get hotter. So we really do want to set Billings Field up for the future and provide shade and cooling. So I am seeing a lot of action in the chat, and we're going to open it up. But I think first, there are a couple of elected officials that are here tonight. And so we wanted to give them first opportunity to speak. I'm not sure if I have the ability to see who's raising their hand, but if I think I saw Councillor Weber. Oh, there you go. Okay. So, Juana, if you could allow Councilor Weber to,
I can unmute myself.
yeah, there we go.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
thank you. For those who don't know me, my name is Ben Weber. I'm the Boston City Councilor for District 6. Thanks B and Matt for the presentation. You know, I have heard a lot of feedback from the community on this, all of it in support of the street hockey rink. So I really hope that we can come up with a project that will allow the rink, you know, to be built. You know, and that we're involved in the process. I understand, you know, there's also a lot of need for the baseball field and obviously for lighting. And so, you know, I think those are of a lot of value. You know, there's a lot of little league and people playing baseball. So I don't want to you know, sort of throw that away. But in terms of priorities, there's certainly, I just hope you realize there's a lot of support for that rink. And so we, you know, in terms of the bidding process and everything to work together, I hope we can to make that, you know, space available and that we can get a rink in there. So I will certainly be working with the community to try to make sure that that happens. You know, I support it. You know, I've seen street hockey at Fallon Field. I've seen how important it is to the community and how much demand there is. You know, I look forward to working with you, B, on this, and you know, and doing everything we can to get that rink in there. So thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'll be on here if anybody has any questions. They can talk to me, reach me at my office, and you know, I'll still be hope to be a part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor Weber. Are there any other elected officials?
Hi, B. This is Bill McGregor. I'm in the State House, not the city, but I just want to echo what Councilor Weber has said. I used to work in the city council, and about 6 years ago, I know the reason why we were trying to do a renovation at Billings Field was to add a street hockey rink court, whatever it's called. And that was the big push from Council O'Malley. It was also a big push from Parkway Hockey and Parkway in Motion. So I just feel like that's something that has to stay. And I understand the costs have gone way up, and you know, but I plan to work with Councilor Weber, and I'll let the mayor know as well. And you know, obviously, I know it has to go in front of the council for budget request, but this is going to be something that I am going to push for. And there's also one other thing you mentioned, cutting down trees. There is one tree that has a plaque for a family that had a son that was killed or, you know, died, and I just want to make sure that tree is stays there.
I believe that I know the tree that you're talking about, and I'm pretty sure it is dead, and we are definitely going to replace it as part of this project and work with the family. I have yet to reach out to them, and if they're here tonight, please reach out to me. Otherwise, I'm gonna do a little research. But yeah,
and I'll be happy to put you guys in connect you guys.
That would be great. I would appreciate that. Yeah, because we definitely know that one's important, and it's going to, a tree is going to stay there, but I think we're going to replace it with one that's in living condition. So thank you.
Great. Actually, I just saw a message on in the chat real quick. So, just want to reiterate, you know, one of the biggest reasons why we're doing this renovation was to add the street hockey. Thank you for doing this meeting, and thank you for letting me speak.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, so I think that there are a number of people with their hands raised. I don't have the ability to see everyone in the order that they raised them. So I think just quickly going to the chat, there is a
Mark
lot of support for this.
Lowen had his hand raised.
Okay. Let's let him speak.
Hi, I'm Officer Mark Lowen. I work at District 5. I'm in the Community Service Office. I'd like to just clear the air. There was some possible rumors that I was against this project, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I 100% support this skating rink. I think it's going to be a great addition to Billings Field. Anything to get these kids outside from PS5 is the way to go. On a personal note, I have a son who plays hockey for Parkway, and he's extremely excited about this. So once again, I 100% support this, and I hope it goes through.
Thank you so much. Looks like Jonathan Stratton is up. No.
Yes, hi. Jonathan Stratton. I've been at the Billings Field for more than 22 years. I assist the Parks Department with maintenance and oversight of the facility. We also host a lot of events at Billings Field. I thought that one of the main purposes of this renovation, to address the drainage and everything, but was also to add the street hockey rink. I think if anything should be eliminated from the budget, if it doesn't, there's not enough money, it should be the entrance, the pavilion and the platform. And that's just my opinion. I don't think we need to do anything to the entrance other than make sure it's wide enough for the vehicles to get in and out. Like when they have movie night, they need to bring in the equipment. They have the concerts, they got to bring in the stage. All these things have been going to Billings Field for years. And I think we should continue to bring them to Billings Field so that everybody can enjoy the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm seeing a fair amount in the chat still, lots of support for the rink. Are there other folks who want to raise their hand and be unmuted? Are there other suggestions for items that, is there, I think I saw somebody in the chat was saying that they think the splash pad should go away. And there were a couple of other people who recommended removal of a few of the courts, the tennis courts, which is an interesting perspective. It tends to be kind of a zero sum when you do the demolition for something. It still costs money to get rid of it, but that is an interesting perspective and I'm just wondering if that's other folks share that.
B, this is Bill Taub. How are you?
So we have 4 people with their hand raised. Gonna allow Ben to go first, then Chris, then Brian, then Connell, then William.
Okay. I can't raise my hand because I'm visually impaired.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll be quick, and I just I would just like a commitment for people for here in terms of the bidding process, that there will be, once we know what the bids are and the different alternative costs, that there'll be community engagement around, which alternatives, we can have that discussion when we know how much money it's going to cost. So I'm just, in terms of the process, just to make sure people have a chance to weigh in, before the final decisions are made. So I don't know, B, what your timeline is, and maybe I missed it before, but just to reiterate what
I think Yeah, we certainly prioritize community participation, but I think that that would be, I'm not aware of any projects that have done community participation to determine the order that bids are sort of accepted and the items. So I think the point of tonight is to try and understand what is a lower priority item and what is a high priority item so that we can go forward into the bidding process. Because there is enough of a time sensitive nature of bidding. You go out, you have the contractor, giving you some bids, you have your funding, and you really do need to sort of move forward in a timely manner. And we give a month notice for our meetings. So it would be a real challenge to the schedule and just generally a challenge if we had the community meeting to discuss the bid options and then didn't come up with any clear majority. I mean, what I'm sensing from tonight is that the street hockey rink is a real high priority.
Yeah,
So that's helpful.
With that in mind, I would just join the call to, put the street hockey rink above the entrance. I think the kids, it's like there's only so many places you can play street hockey, and this would be, a great place for them. And sacrificing a nicer entrance, while it's a great idea, if the funds are limited, I put that above the entrance, if that's, the other thing sort of vying for the highest spot. So
Yeah,
thanks,
I'm
Doug.
definitely, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say that Mr. Traub was starting to speak before. So I'm not sure, Quana, if you could.
I'm still here.
There you are. Did you have something that you were going to say about the design or the?
Yes. First, I walked up the Grange Street from Corb Pub this afternoon. There's only 1 or 2 handicap spots that are available. The second thing is the tennis courts someone brought up. There is a nonprofit that uses those tennis courts during the summer to provide a combination of teaching tennis and teaching kids how to read. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name. And as far as the drainage,
Tenacity.
I used to coach Little League in Parkway, and when it rains, those fields have very bad drainage. My next thing is the walking path. Is that going to be completed so that there is a path that goes around? Because right now it does not go completely around, and after you walk past the tennis courts, you have very hilly ground when it's unsafe for seniors and people with disabilities. And my last thing is the stairs that are going to be renovated from Billings, from Bellevue. Are they going to have yellow stripes on the stairs so people like myself with low vision can be able to walk those stairs much easily?
Those are great suggestions. I had not thought of including a colorful element to the stairs, and we can definitely look at that because that's a good point. With low vision, stairs are challenging. And I realize that our plan is small on the screen, and so it may be difficult to see, but we would be including a loop path that is ADA accessible throughout the site. So those are all great points, and thank you for bringing those up. Someone mentioned in the chat just now having to do with the water feature that's currently in the kids' playground right now. And so part of this renovation, we would be replacing the safety surface in the playground and making some spot upgrades to the play equipment where we know that it's no longer safe / rusting. You know, there's some problems there that we would be addressing, but it would be sort of a spot treatment of the playground where we would remove that water play from the playground, because our understanding is it is not great. It always gets clogged with leaves and mulch and has some ponding issues. And so we would essentially, in this design, be relocating the water spray area to this new location. So this is not a duplicate water spray, just to make that clear. So if there are others who with their hands raised, I think, sorry for talking so much.
Hi, my name is Chris Bacuzzi. I think I was next on this on the chat, but hopefully I didn't cut anybody. I live on Bellevue Street. I'm a lifelong West Roxbury resident, and I appreciate all you guys are doing here to make this project a reality. I am in favor of the street hockey court. I'm one of the people that help run Parkway Youth Hockey. And I have a question, I guess, for the group. How much do you consider or take kind of a holistic approach to what else the neighborhood has? You know, we're lucky in West Roxbury that we have Heinz Field, Draper Field, Millennium, you know, West Roxbury High and the courts and everything around there. So how much would you guys consider that? You know, I think there's 3 tennis courts at West High. There's, I think, 5 basketball courts in and around West Roxbury, not including the plans here. I mean, I know the rink is call it like a new feature, whereas the other courts were minor upgrades. But at what point does, you know, I guess considering taking, you know, 1 or 2 courts out, be it basketball or tennis, at what point is taking 1 or 2 of those out in lieu of the street hockey rink, is that considered by you guys?
That's a good question. Thank you, Chris. It's, you know, when we go through our renovations, we do take a look at the other available parks, you know, that are nearby or within sort of a reasonable distance that people could find the same programs at. We try not to duplicate, but in this case, you know, our sense is that with programs between the Y using the park and Tenacity using the park, as well as people who play pickleball taking advantage of the courts as well, that they're highly utilized courts. And so, you know, it's something that's good to hear, that there's sort of an interest in at least a curiosity about maybe what we could replace with a street hockey rink if budget required us to do that. So, you know, I think we could look at that if that's necessary, right? Like we could see what the funding that we get is, and then, you know, maybe it takes the place of 2 of the courts. We would probably want to leave at least 1 of each, you know, because I think that they are well used, right? And I think that was one of the reasons why we were seeking to maintain them and make some upgrades to them.
Ryan's next.
Hi, this is Brian Clardy. I'm the president of Parkway Youth Hockey, and at risk of beating a dead horse here, I think we're hearing. I'm just going to repeat the message, I guess. You know, there's about 500 kids at Parkway Youth Hockey and in the area, and you know, if you look across the city, kind of like what Chris was saying, I think there's more than 10 street hockey rinks across the city, and not one of them is in our area in West Roxbury. And just making that point, I guess it's to tag on to what Chris was saying about, you know, it's great. There's a million tennis courts and basketball courts. But I think you hear what our community is looking for. And thanks again I mean, I've been on every meeting you guys have had and appreciate your thoughtful approach to this project.
Thanks, Brian.
I think Connell, then Jessica, then Peter.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. This is Connell Barbito. I'm also a former board member at Parkway Youth Hockey. I've been involved in the community for, probably 12 years or so from the time that I've moved here from Dorchester. I can tell you that there's been a lot of strong influence actually from the Rosendale, from the from the street hockey court at Fallon there. We've had kids going over there. I've driven my son over there many times just to kind of play in that court because it was such a great addition to the overall, this part of the city, I guess. This has been such an awesome opportunity and idea that you guys have presented. I've been on one of the early meetings and kind of trusted that you had it going in the right support and the right direction here. I just want to reiterate that, look, this would be a significant upgrade to our community. I think, I've coached at least a couple of kids in my time that started off playing street hockey and they moved to ice hockey, and now they're playing ice hockey in junior high and in high school, and it's been positive influences in their lives. And I think I'm not undervaluing that at all. I think obviously you can hear us see us on the chat, but I just wanted to speak my voice here. Appreciate the work that you guys are doing. Brian did a good job of articulating that as well. But very much in favor, and I think we all represent a significant amount of people that are not on this call. And kids that are to come up in the neighborhood as well. So appreciate you hearing us out. Appreciate the work you're doing here. I think you're on the right track. And thanks again.
Thank you, Connell.
Jessica?
Hi, this is Jessica Purdy. I am actually a resident on Sturgis Road, and we've lived there for about 15 years. I have 4 boys that I've raised in the neighborhood and raising in the neighborhood, none of which play hockey. But that being said, I'm definitely in support of the street hockey rink. I think I agree with my fellow neighbors that it would be a good addition that doesn't exist in the neighborhood right now. I don't think that you can get rid of any of the basketball courts, potentially a tennis court. But again, tenacity, that's a huge piece for there. I see it every summer, day in, day out. The basketball courts, because the Y interior has gotten rid of their courts basically for use for the most part for the kids. Too many kids go to those basketball courts that walk from the neighborhood that live there that utilize them. I think the splash pad is something that we could definitely do without. We have one over at Hines. We have one down on the Turtle Pond Parkway. As a resident on the small side streets there too, I worry a little bit about all these glorified additions of what that's going to mean for continued parking. And so I think, again, if you're alleviating something, the splash pad, where you're going to have a lot more people coming in during those busy months as it is, that people are already competing for parking with, whether it's for baseball games, softball games, or what I presume is now potentially going to be street hockey games, that might be an area of something that, could go, in my opinion. I am curious, and that this might not be a question for you because obviously there doesn't appear to be any extra parking in these plans, but, I guess my plea is to all the, Parkway organizations, hockey, Little League, softball, and all of that. How are people going to make sure that they're not, constantly blocking driveways, double parking, illegally parking on the side streets with all this extra stuff that's happening? So I guess that would be my one thing that I'd like to know, a little bit more about, is how, with all the increased traffic, how that's going to be handled.
Thank you for your thoughts, and I'm glad to hear that you live on Sturgis Road and your thoughts on it, because I feel like we've made a number of these, had a number of these meetings, and no one has at least self-identified as being on Sturgis. So with regard to parking, you are correct. There is no parking in the park that we are providing, and so I do sympathize, because living nearby a park, that is often something that we hear is frustrating, for sure. And so I think that that's really one of those things that our permitting folks need to emphasize. And anyone who is on the call tonight, please hear that if you're an organizer of sports and if you're a park user organizing any groups, encourage people to do carpooling, encourage drop-offs in a courteous way, and don't block in people who live near the park. So thank you, Jessica.
Are you able to unmute yourself, Peter? We're not able to hear you, Peter.
No, there's sort of like I can almost hear you. Do you have another microphone or some other way of?
We'll go to Matt.
There we go.
It sounds like, yeah.
Can you hear me now? Maybe there's
Yes, that
problem.
works.
Okay, fine. I
Nice.
live on Maxfield Street, which is one up from Sturgis, and I look at the park several times a day. I'm also an active user of the park. And I've lived here for, I don't know, 11, 12 years. And it's a lovely asset for the community, et cetera. But I do have some questions about your decisions on the access ramp. There's a couple of things. First of all, this area of green that we have, which is admittedly very small, nonetheless, is the only significant wildlife area between down from Stony Brook Reservation. So there actually is some communication in the wildlife between Stony Brook and that patch of green going toward the west, or coming from the west, and therefore it is important. There's also a lot of food for predators in that patch of green, and so it's important for the ecosystem that we have, and to continue it, I think would be very valuable. So that's one thing, and so I give it priority as I'm trying to speak for species other than people here. And I realize that people are very important and your primary concern, and that's fine. But there is another access, handicap access to the park presently, so we do have to take that into account. And the other is that a couple of things. On Bellevue Street, it's very limited to be able to get somebody out of a car, even just to drop off a pedestrian at that particular access point is difficult because the street is very narrow. There's parking on one side all the way down. And you really have to either stop in the middle of the road and have a couple and block traffic, or you have to be lucky and find a parking spot in order to let somebody off who would use that spot. So I'm not sure exactly how much access it would get from people coming in by automobile. For residents of the neighborhood, that's a different matter. And certainly for somebody living on the hill as I do, it's the easiest access if one is handicapped. Now, I'm not handicapped, so I'm not speaking for that. I know handicapped people, and for them, it could very well be a plus. But there are some negatives here, and one of them is that the proposed material that I saw, at least in your diagram, is concrete, which is a great heat sink. You've got a south-facing slope, so it absorbs heat. And concrete, as you know, is a material that retains heat far longer than soil does. The soil, especially if it's covered by a canopy, is going to be much cooler. So I'm sure there will be a pronounced difference, not only for people who are using the access ramp, for people who are using the staircase. With the loss of the green cover for that area, there will be a tremendous amount of heat as a result of, especially toward the end of July and so forth, when things have built up over time. And so that may in fact make it less accessible for some people who are struggling with heat. I'll leave it there. I don't have any other comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Peter. As far as other alternatives for accessing the park, if you are up on Bellevue Street and you need to get to another entrance, the slope of the driveway for the YMCA and Quinn Way, the slope along Quinn Way, they're steeper than a handicap ramp. 1 to 12 is the legal limit for the steepest a handicap ramp can be. And so you're really looking at having to go all the way down Center Street, then turning down LaGrange, and the entrances along LaGrange are accessible. But you know, it's one thing if you get out of a car at the YMCA parking lot, then we are designing this plan in a way where you can access the park from both the YMCA parking lot and what is currently a staircase on Quinn Way will now be a ramp. You can just see that to the left of the word Quinn Way in the plan. But, you know, we sort of realized with the help of our conversations with the Disabilities Commission that these are sort of micro improvements. And yet, if you were looking at sort of the neighborhood, and if you live to the north of the park and you're mobility impaired, you're really looking at going all the way to LaGrange. So I appreciate your points and thank you for sharing your thoughts on all of those things. Are there other folks who want to share their thoughts?
Mallory, are you able to unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, love the opportunity in the forum. My family and I, we live up on LaGrange, so love the process and then the hopes for improvement in the plans. Quick question regarding the splash pad. For us, I know someone else was saying that it might not be necessary, but that's a huge draw for us that it not be there. We definitely want it there, is what I'm saying. Whenever in the summer months we want to go somewhere and use a splash pad, we're always bummed that we can't just go to Billings. Especially since the community and the families with kids that live in the neighborhood, like we all just go to Billings and it's always packed there. So in that regard, like why is the splash pad over on that side and not next to the playground? Is one question. And then my other question is there any plan for bathrooms to be a permanent fixture of this park? I don't know if I saw them on the plans. Thank you.
Thank you. We batted around the idea of the location of the splash pad, and we came up with this one because a number of people said, you know, I'm kind of fine with the idea of bringing my kids to the playground and not having to worry about them getting wet. You know, like I want to be able to go somewhere specifically to get my kids wet if that's what they want to do, but it seemed like a better idea to separate those two things by some space and also to be able to put it near the intensive athletic activity, allowing people who are in the, you know, basketball, tennis, baseball, even to run over and cool off. But, you know, we looked at both locations because at first it was like, well, of course you put this splash pad next to the playground. So, you know, this is what we came up with. So I appreciate your thoughts on it. And as far as bathrooms, there are currently bathrooms that are in the field house. Those are opened when we have sporting events, different, you know, softball field, baseball events. And those are not, it's not an open building, you know, it's not open 24/7. There is some coordination. But so we're not planning on installing new bathrooms here, just given that we have them already.
Thank you. Quick follow-up on that. Sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
Why not? Open bathrooms for families especially is such a need, and I know that there's risk involved, but it's just something that I'm curious as to why. Is it just the risk factor? And then the minor upgrades to the playground, is there any details as to what those are? If they're putting in a splash pad, are they going to remove the current water feature that's on that side? And then what other updates will they be doing to the playground? Thank you.
Yeah. So again, there was a lot of pushback about like a full renovation of the playground. I think it's intensively used enough that there seems to be a lot of interest in like doing the absolute minimum so that we could open it up really fast. So we did some testing and we looked at the equipment that's out there and we noted that there are some pieces that are rusted and some pieces that are missing. And we looked at the safety surfacing. And so really it's sort of piecemeal repairs of what's there. A couple at the splash, you know, the water table, I think that's what it is, will come out and be replaced with another smaller piece for ages 2 to 5. But essentially there's not enough of a difference to share a proposed plan. So we're not trying to be like cagey or weaselly about it. It's just like there aren't going to be really significant changes. I guess the boulders are going to come out. We've heard enough complaints about the boulders, and the mounds apparently no longer comply with safety standards. So we will be taking those mounds that are next to the swing. It's not that mounds are dangerous, it's that mounds in the locations where they are in are not as safe as they should be. So we would be redoing the safety surface, getting rid of the boulders and the mounds. And as far as open bathrooms, that is challenging. Yes, I agree with you that we should have open bathrooms, that everybody deserves a bathroom, especially when they need one. And we are trying to improve our ability to have coverage and be able to open up doors, unlock doors remotely is what we're looking at. But that still sort of begs the question of maintenance. And as everybody always hears from the Parks Department, like, our guys are strapped. They spend all of their time trying to pick up trash and trying to, do the bare minimum. And so maintaining a bathroom is another challenge for us, to be sure. So we're working on it. I know that that's kind of a lame response, but we are trying to make improvements to the locking system so that we maybe wouldn't have to do it in person and have them be open more often. So thank you, Mallory.
Thank you.
Chris Bishop, are you able to unmute yourself?
Hi, yeah, I am. Hi, B, and all. Thanks for the time. I just wanted to follow up on what some other folks said. I'm also with Parkway Hockey, and wanted to touch on something, B, you said at the beginning about this being sort of a financial consideration about what comes in and what doesn't, what has to get cut from it. In looking at the plans, the first thing that jumps out to me is the splash pad. In terms of usage versus cost, there's a really short window that something like that can be used. I mean, perhaps 3 months at the most. Whereas, something like a street hockey court or a basketball court, or any of the tennis, pickleball courts, what have you, can be used almost year round. And you'll find, I think, definitely in this community that people would use the street hockey court probably anytime there wasn't snow on the ground. In addition to that, I would assume that, building something like the splash pad would be far more of a investment in terms of materials, plumbing, and maintenance, along with the amount of water that we'd be using throughout that time. Whereas a court itself is pretty much a fixed object. Once it's there, there's the cost of putting it there, but then maintenance is incredibly low, and it's usable, at all times without anybody really having to look over it, aside from basic maintenance, which, for hopefully some of the folks that use it would do it, and insofar as removing trash and water bottles and such. Does that get taken into consideration, the overall investment into the initial build of the park features?
Yes, yeah, it does, and those are good points. But I think it's challenging because one of our sort of citywide series of improvements has to do with providing cooling options for people. And it is a small window. I get that. It's a 3-month, 4-month window when these are being used. But, the risks of overheating are significant. And, I think that perhaps this is something where we are going to look at right sizing is the term that everybody uses, right sizing these different things. And if we make it a smaller splash pad, maybe that would be a smaller investment. Or maybe we could convert, we could add these things called misting posts, which are basically like sort of showers, but specifically used to cool off, right?
Sure.
So I'm taking down these notes as you're saying them. So I think those are all good points.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for the time. This is a great forum to be able to come out and speak about this. So thanks for having us on.
Thanks, Chris.
Richard?
Yes, hi, good evening. B, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
I want to first thank you and your team here. This is great job with these plans and everything, and the open forum we're having here. I think it's great. I'm also, like many other people have already spoken, a member of the board at Parkway Youth Hockey. I would say, like, to echo a lot of what other people have said, we definitely need to do everything we can to keep the street hockey court. I know in a perfect world, we'd like to see nothing cut out, and I know, depending on cost, that can be tricky, but we definitely need to keep the street hockey court in there. I grew up playing street hockey at Fountainfield. Now I live in West Roxbury, and I still take my kids down there every spring and summer. We always had the street hockey league up there. And I think if we were to, have a street hockey court in West Roxbury, with the volume of kids, amount of kids, it's something we might even be able to start up as a community here in West Roxbury to continue what had gone on for so many years, the Coppinger street hockey thing that just had its last season. It was 10 years strong, and it was great. My kids did it for several years. And I think it's, I think it helped bring kids, whether they played ice hockey or not, or just wanted to get into hockey, parents just looking for, in an inexpensive way for, kids to be introduced into more sports. I think it's a great thing. I would just want to echo what, like I said, what a lot of people said before, that I think the street hockey court is definitely something, we need to, get in to West Roxbury, as we don't have one in West Roxbury. And, we have probably the largest youth hockey program right now in the city, as far as, Parkway is concerned. So I think just getting, doing everything we can to make sure that we don't have to remove this from the plans is very key. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is clearly put. I appreciate that.
Sarah Parker, are you able to unmute yourself?
I am, yes. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. First off, I want to say thank you, B. I've been on a bunch of these calls from the beginning. You've been great, and this has been a great process, and I appreciate you allowing the community to comment and be involved in the process. I live on Maxfield Street, which is just the street behind Sturgis, so we go to the park all the time. My kids play there all the time. We're there all the time, and I also am part of Parkway Youth Hockey, and I want to reiterate what everyone has said, that I think this rink is something that needs to be here in West Roxbury. If you look throughout the rest of the city, there's 14 rinks throughout the city. There's not one in West Roxbury. West Roxbury has, I think, over 5 basketball courts, over 5 tennis courts. The only thing that we don't have is the hockey rink. So I definitely think that it's something that needs to be kept in the plans, and, we need to work together to find a way to keep this, because it's what the community wants. And I'd also like to read a statement from my son, who's 14 years old. He didn't want to come on, but he wanted me to read it. He is a hockey player, and his name is Jacob. He said, kids want a street hockey rink within walking distance of their homes. For example, the closest rink is Fallon. So I think a couple other people mentioned that a lot of the kids from West Roxbury have to go over to Fallon Field, which isn't a big deal, but it would be a wonderful community thing to have something that is within walking distance for the kids that live here in the community and play hockey. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. And Sarah's son. That was helpful. Are there other folks with their hands raised? I also just want to say that part of this meeting, if you put your comments in the chat, this is all being saved as part of the record. So if you don't want to raise your hand, that's totally fine. We've got a lot of comments here in the chat that we're going to be downloading and digesting. I think it's safe to say it's pretty clear that the community prioritizes the hockey rink. This has been a very helpful meeting to make that crystal clear for me and my group. So, and it does sound like there is less emphasis, less interest in the sort of gathering space at the entrance near LaGrange. And so we're going to look at other ways that we can potentially cut costs. And, I mean, this is one of those things where we have to do this as an exercise to be responsible with the funding that we get. Like, this is our job working for the city of Boston. It's not just like, woo, let's spend it all, right? So there's, we're going to try and design it in a way that we can afford to build it, and we will have ad alternates for the things that we are hopeful that we can include. But, I think what I'm hearing is that there's potentially some interest in adjusting, the hockey rink is a higher priority than the courts. We certainly would not get rid of all the courts, but that maybe the splash pad gets modified. Maybe it's smaller, I think there's still a couple of folks with their hands raised. So love to hear what you have to think.
Jennifer, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, I am. Hi, I am also a huge proponent for the street hockey, as you've heard, but I mean, in this time too, we're always looking for different ways for kids to just get out and do more. And I know my son, we bring him to Fallon a lot, and it's great, but it's also needs a lot of repairs. So sometimes when you're there too, you're worrying about, someone's arm going through the broken wall. But it's also something that they can do on their own. Like, sometimes he just wants to go down, get on his rollerblades and, shoot some balls around. And if you don't have a court like that, there isn't anywhere that they can kind of just go and do something on their own. So to have the ability to just do something like that, whether he's all by himself or, he gets together with a bunch of his friends, they can just go down and utilize the space. And I think that it would be great for hockey players. And then also just, you see the Shamrock Shootout every year and how many kids get involved in that. So it definitely shows how much the courts would definitely get used. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there other thoughts or folks who've been sitting on that big thought that I see that Sarah asks in the chat, currently skating and rollerblading is not allowed on the path at Billings. Hopefully with the renovations, rollerblading will be allowed on the path so kids can be active. That's interesting. I actually wasn't aware that it's not allowed on the path. I think, yeah, I don't know about that, to be perfectly honest. I can look into that and get back to you, but I'm sorry for not being more up to date on the specific policy here. Because it seems to me like, yeah, this is going to be an active recreation path that we are encouraging people to walk and run. And I don't know, I would say that rollerblading would kind of go in with that. But I don't want to tell you that if there's like a big sign that says no rollerblading. So we'll look at the signage as well as part of this project. How's that? All right, so it's 7:17 and my contact info, yes, thank you for asking me about that. Abigail.chatfield@boston.gov. That's my email. I'm putting it in the chat. And I'm also putting my phone number.
Just curious, what's going to be the next step?
So the next step, you have the cutest kid sitting next to you. I just want to like,
That's why I've been
what,
a little
what
off,
baby is trying
off the
to
camera. So yeah, she's ready for bed. So
oh, honey,
thank you.
We'll try and get you to bed, kiddo, soon. We're trying to end, but yeah. So the next step is going to be securing funding, and then going out to bid. And so part of this process, it's like we've requested the full funding that we hope to get to build what you're seeing here, but we're going to need to list a couple of ad alternates in order to be able to move forward through the bidding process and not stop and redesign and go back out to bid and take a whole lot of time to do that. So assuming we can. Hi. We have our priorities very clear that the street hockey rink is staying in. And, we're going to look at the other ways that we can reduce costs and still provide you guys with a wonderful park that is worth the time and worth the money, right?
And
So,
just curious,
yeah.
are we gonna have another community meeting before the it goes out to bid?
I don't think so. I mean,
No.
I think if we can figure out ways to sort of like cut a little bit here and cut a little bit there, it's not going to be a profound difference. I think
Okay.
if we did something that was like, you know what, we're going to get rid of the basketball and put the hockey rink there, then we probably would, right? That would be a profound impact, and we'd probably, probably hear a lot of people if we did that. But this is just, it's giving me my work cut out for me. Trying to figure out ways of doing this within the budget and seeing what we can cut. So.
No, thank you, B, and thank you for listening to the community. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you guys, and I appreciate everyone taking the time and listening and contributing your thoughts.
B, we have one question in the chat. It said, who approves the budget?
Lots of people approve the budget. Lots. Basically, the city council gets the final approval, but the Parks Department, we have submitted our request to the Office of Budget Management. They take a look and they decide to what level they're going to fund the overall Parks Department. And so, as a department, we are trying to figure out all of the different parks and all the different neighborhoods that have a backlog of things that we need to do, right? And so this is, we have lots of different projects and all throughout the city. And so it's always a balancing act trying to figure out who gets what when. And, we've had this project in the pipeline for a couple of years now. And we are hopeful that we can get it out and get it built. So essentially, that's the answer. Parks has to approve the budget initially, and then we send it off to Office of Budget Management, and then the mayor and city council have to give their thumbs up. So anyway, it's a balancing act, and I appreciate hearing what community priorities are, and we will try and do what we can and let you know if there are any significant changes as a result. Okay. So I think if we want to stop recording and everyone have a wonderful night, and the design team wants to stay on for a little bit, we'll regroup.
Yeah, thank you everybody for your input. Appreciate it.